The massive Thalaran warships appeared above Earth like death itself, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Admiral Tom Blake stood on the bridge of the UES Thunder, watching 12 alien vessels that dwarfed humanity's entire fleet. Each ship was a fortress of metal and energy, bristling with weapons that could turn worlds to glass. Blake was 52, gray-haired, with the steady hands of a man who had seen too many battles. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with nervous energy. They were young, most of them. They had trained for this day, but hoped it would never come. "Sir, incoming transmission," called out Officer Miller from communications. Her voice was tight with fear. The main screen flickered, showing a tall alien with blue skin and for arms. Its black eyes held no warmth, no mercy. Golden armor covered its chest, marked with symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "I am Commander Dex of the Thalaran Empire." The alien spoke with a voice like grinding stone. "Your species has spread beyond permitted boundaries. You will abandon your colonies and submit to our rule, or we will erase you from existence." Blake stepped forward, his boots clicking on the metal deck. Around him, 40 human ships waited in formation. Against 12 alien dreadnoughts, it seemed like madness. "This is Admiral Tom Blake of United Earth," he replied, his voice carrying across the void. "We claim no territory that isn't ours by right. We've harmed no one, threatened no one. Leave our space." The alien's expression didn't change. "The Thalaran Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. We have crushed civilizations that could move stars. You are insects. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation, or we demonstrate why the galaxy kneels before us." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Blake could feel his crew's eyes on him, waiting for orders that might be their last. "Sir," Miller whispered, "what are our orders?" Blake looked out at the enemy fleet. Each ship could probably destroy Earth's entire navy alone. The smart thing would be to negotiate, to buy time, to find some way to survive. But Blake knew something. The aliens didn't understand about humanity. "Open a channel," he ordered. Broadcast to all human forces. Miller's hand shook as she activated the communications array. "Channel open, Admiral." Blake straightened, looking into the camera that would carry his words to every human ship, every colony, every outpost across the solar system. On Earth below, families gathered around screens. On the frontier worlds, settlers prepared for the worst. "This is Admiral Blake to all human forces," he began, his voice steady and clear. "Today we face an enemy that believes size equals victory. They think because they're older, because they've conquered others, that we'll simply surrender." He paused, watching the alien ships begin to move into attack formation. Energy signatures spiked across their hulls as massive weapons came online. "They don't know us," Blake continued. "They don't know that humanity has never surrendered to tyranny. At the Alamo, we chose death over slavery. At Stalingrad, we turned winter itself into a weapon. At the Battle of Britain, we stood alone against the darkness and held the line." On the bridge, his crew began to sit straighter. The fear in their eyes was being replaced by something harder, something that had carried humanity through 10,000 years of war and survival. "Today, we give them one warning," Blake said, his voice growing cold. "Turn around, leave our space, forget you ever found us. Because if you stay, if you threaten our families, our children, our future, you'll learn why every species that tried to break humanity has regretted it." He gestured to Miller, who cut the transmission. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of engines and the beep of sensors tracking the alien fleet. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Ross from Tactical, "they're charging weapons. All ships are powering up for attack." Blake nodded slowly. The aliens had made their choice. They had rejected humanity's warning, dismissed it as the empty threat of a primitive species. Soon, they would learn the truth. "All ships, battle stations," Blake ordered, "prepare for combat operations." "Admiral," Ross said, uncertainty in his voice, "we're outnumbered 3-1. Our weapons barely scratched their armor." Blake smiled, and there was something ancient in that smile. Something that spoke of humanity's long history of turning impossible odds into victory through sheer determination and fury. Lieutenant, he said quietly, they made one critical error. They gave us a warning instead of just attacking. Now they're about to discover why that was the last mistake they'll ever make. The human fleet began to move. The first strike commander. Dex watched the primitive human ships with amusement as they spread into what they probably thought was a battle formation. 40 small vessels against 12 Thalaran dreadnoughts. It would be over in minutes. Status report. He commanded from his command throne. His forearms resting on the ornate armrests carved from the bones of extinct species. All weapons charged. Commander reported his tactical officer. Hull plating shows full integrity. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Dex had been in command of the 3rd Imperial Fleet for 300 years. He had destroyed 17 civilizations, conquered 43 worlds, and personally executed the leaders of 6 different species. These humans would be no different. Begin the attack, he ordered. Target their largest ships first. Make it quick. The Thalaran dreadnoughts opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy across space. The beams struck the human flagship, the UES Thunder, dead center. Dex expected to see the ship vaporize instantly. Instead, the Thunder's hull absorbed the blast, its armor glowing white-hot but holding firm. The ship kept moving forward. What? Dex leaned forward in his throne, increased power to weapons. Full barrage, all 12 ships fired at once, concentrating their beams on the Thunder. The space around the human flagship lit up like a small sun. When the light faded, the ship was still there, still advancing. Its hull was scarred and smoking, but it hadn't broken. Impossible, whispered the tactical officer. Nothing should survive that much firepower. Dex was about to respond when the human ships returned fire. Their weapons seemed primitive, simple kinetic projectiles and basic energy beams. The shot struck the lead Thalaran ship's shields and bounced off harmlessly. Then something strange happened. The human projectiles began to change course in mid-flight, turning and striking the same point on the shield over and over. Each impact was weak, but they kept hitting the exact same spot. Commander, the tactical officer's voice carried a note of concern. They're using some kind of adaptive targeting. Their weapons are learning from each impact. Irrelevant, Dex snarled. Their weapons are too weak to matter. But as he watched, more human ships joined the attack. Instead of spreading their fire across multiple targets, they focused everything on a single Thalaran vessel. Hundreds of projectiles struck the same section of shield, each one hitting harder than the last. The shield flickered, then failed. The next wave of human projectiles struck bare hull, punching through the armor plating. Explosions bloomed along the dreadnought side as internal systems overloaded. Hull breach on Deck 7. Came the report from the damaged ship. Primary weapon systems offline. Dex stared in disbelief. These primitives had actually damaged a Thalaran warship. It shouldn't be possible. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he commanded. Begin long-range bombardment. But the humans had anticipated this. Their smaller ships moved with surprising speed, darting between the massive dreadnoughts like wolves. Attacking a herd, they used the Thalaran ship's own size against them, making it impossible for the aliens to fire without risking hitting each other. Admiral Blake watched the battle from the Thunder's bridge, a grim smile on his face. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought this would be easy. Status report. He called out, hull integrity at 60%, reported Lieutenant Ross. But all primary systems are operational. Good. Signal the pack hunters. Begin phase 2. The smaller human ships suddenly changed tactics. Instead of engaging directly, they began laying what looked like mines in the path of the Thalaran fleet. The aliens, confident in their shields, flew right through them. The mines didn't explode. Instead, they attached themselves to the alien hulls like metal parasites. Within seconds, they began drilling through the armor plating. Sir, unknown devices are attaching to our ships. The tactical officer reported to Dex. They appear to be some kind of boring mechanism. Dex is for hands clenched into fists. Destroy them! We can't target them without damaging our own hulls, Commander. The drilling devices reached the inner hull and activated their real purpose. They weren't just mines. They were insertion pods from each one. A squad of human soldiers in powered armor materialized, teleported directly onto the Thalaran ships. Boarding parties came the panicked reports from across the fleet. Humans on decks 4, 7, and 12. Dex couldn't believe what he was hearing. These primitives weren't just fighting back. They were winning. On the Thunder, Blake received the reports with satisfaction. The Thalarans had superior technology. But they had never faced an enemy that fought like humans, an enemy that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. Phase 3, he ordered quietly. The real battle was just beginning. Asterisk. The boarding Sergeant Jake Morrison materialized inside the Thalaran dreadnought. With his squad of 12 Marines, the teleportation left him dizzy for a moment. But training kicked in. They were deep inside enemy territory now, and every second counted. The alien corridor was massive, built for creatures much larger than humans. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, and the air tasted like metal and ozone. Morrison could hear alarms blaring throughout the ship. Squad, sound off, he whispered. Into his comm unit, Alpha Team ready, came the reply from Corporal West. Bravo Team in position. Reported Private Johnson. Morrison checked his rifle and activated his armor stealth mode. The powered suit flickered and became nearly invisible. Around him, his Marines did the same. They had trained for this moment for years, but boarding an alien warship was still beyond anything they had imagined. Remember the mission, Morrison said quietly. We're not here to fight their entire crew. Find the engine room, plant the charges, and get out. The squad moved through the corridors like ghosts. The Thalarans were searching for them, but the aliens were loud and clumsy. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the ship, making them easy to avoid. Morrison's team reached a junction when they encountered their first aliens, 3 Thalaran. Soldiers in gleaming armor turned the corner, weapons raised. They were 8 feet tall, with blue skin and for arms, each one carrying a plasma rifle. The aliens never saw the humans coming. Morrison's squad opened fire with their projectile weapons, the bullets punching through the Thalaran armor like it was made of paper. The aliens fell without getting off a single shot. How did they die so easily? Whispered Johnson, staring at the bodies. Morrison examined the alien armor. It was designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles. They built their defenses around their own technology. They never expected bullets. The squad continued deeper into the ship, following the schematics they had studied. The engine room was 3 levels down, protected by multiple security doors. Each barrier fell to human explosives and determination. Meanwhile, on the bridge of his flagship, Commander Dex was losing control of the situation. Reports flooded in from across his fleet, boarding parties on ships 4, 7, and 9. His communications officer reported, they're targeting our engines. How many humans? Dex demanded. Unknown, sir. Our sensors can't track them. It's like they're invisible. Dex is for hands clenched. These primitives had technology his empire didn't understand. Worse, they were using it better than his own forces used their superior weapons. Send all security teams to the engine levels, he ordered. Flood the corridors with plasma. Kill everything that moves, but the humans were already 3 steps ahead. Morrison's squad had reached the engine room of their target ship, a massive chamber filled with pulsing energy conduits and glowing power cores. Plant the charges. Morrison ordered. We have 5 minutes before they flood this section. His Marines moved with practiced efficiency, placing explosive devices at key points throughout the engine room. These weren't ordinary bombs. They were quantum charges, designed to cause a cascade failure in the alien power systems. Charges set, reported West. Ready for extraction. Morrison activated his comm unit. Thunder, this is boarding team. Alpha, package delivered. Request immediate extraction. Admiral Blake's voice crackled back through the static. Extraction in 30 seconds, Sergeant. Good work. But the Thalarans had finally figured out where the humans were. The engine room doors burst open. and alien soldiers poured in, their plasma weapons lighting up the chamber. Morrison's squad took cover behind the massive power conduits, returning fire with their projectile weapons. The bullets sparked off the alien armor, but enough got through to drop several attackers. 10 seconds to extraction, Morrison shouted over the gunfire. A plasma bolt struck Private Davis in the chest, dropping him to the deck. Johnson grabbed his wounded teammate and dragged him toward the extraction point. Just as the teleportation beam activated, the squad vanished just as the quantum charges exploded. The Thalaran dreadnought shuddered as its engines overloaded. Power systems failed throughout the ship, and the massive vessel began to drift helplessly through space. Similar scenes played out across the alien fleet. Human boarding parties struck 12 targets simultaneously, their attacks coordinated. With military precision, within minutes half the Thalaran ships were dead in space. Commander Dex watched his fleet fall apart around him. These humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They used their weaknesses as strengths, turned their primitive technology into advantages, and struck where his forces were most vulnerable. Sir, his tactical officer said, voice shaking. We're receiving another transmission from the human admiral. The screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Blake on the bridge of his damaged but still fighting flagship. Commander Dex, Blake said calmly, this is your second warning. Leave now, while you still can. Dex stared at the human with growing rage and fear. The escalation Commander Dex's pride had been built over 3 centuries of easy victories. No species had ever damaged his fleet this badly, let alone offered him warnings like he was some minor threat to be dismissed. Second warning, Dex snarled, his forearms trembling with rage. I am Dex of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. I have burned worlds. I have made entire species extinct. Admiral Blake's expression didn't change, and now you're about to learn why that was a mistake. Last chance, Commander. Leave our space. The transmission cut off. Dex stared at the blank screen, his black eyes burning with fury. Half his fleet was disabled. His soldiers were being slaughtered by invisible primitives. And now this human insect dared to threaten him. Signal the Imperial Corps. Dex commanded. Request immediate reinforcements. His communications officer hesitated. Sir, that will take 6 hours for the nearest fleet to arrive. Then we hold for 6 hours. Dex roared. I will not retreat from primitives. But Admiral Blake had no intention of giving the aliens 6 hours on the Thunder's Bridge. He was already implementing the next phase of humanity's response. Signal. All colonies, Blake ordered, execute Protocol 7. Lieutenant Ross looked up from his console. Sir, are you sure? Protocol 7 means. I know what it means. Blake cut him off. Do it. Across human space. The message went out on emergency channels on 12 colony worlds. Families gathered their belongings and moved to underground shelters. But this wasn't an evacuation. It was preparation. Asterisk on the mining world of New Texas. Governor Bill Hayes received the signal and activated the planet's hidden defenses. The colonists had spent 20 years preparing for this day, turning their world into a fortress. All mining charges convert to defensive positions. Hayes ordered every tunnel, every shaft, every cave system. If they want our world, they'll have to dig us out. On the farming world of Green Valley, similar preparations began. What looked like simple irrigation systems revealed themselves as camouflaged weapon emplacements. Barns opened to reveal missile launchers, even the grain. Silos were packed with explosives. But the real surprise was coming from Earth itself, in orbit around humanity's home world. Space began to ripple. The distortions were subtle at first, barely visible against the stars. Then massive shapes began to emerge from what appeared to be empty space. By the void, whispered Dex's tactical officer. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures near Earth. It looks like ships, hundreds of them. The cloaking fields deactivated, revealing humanity's true fleet. The 40 ships that had engaged the Thalarans were just the visible tip of the iceberg. Hidden in stealth fields were 300 more vessels, dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, all built in secret over the past 50 years. Admiral Blake had been preparing for this day since humanity first reached the stars. Every colony had contributed resources, every world had built weapons, every human settlement had become part of a vast defensive network. This is Admiral Blake to all human forces. He announced across the fleet network, the Thalaran Empire has rejected our warnings. They have chosen war with humanity. Show them what that means. The human fleet moved as one. 300 ships converging on the 12 remaining Thalaran vessels. But these weren't the same small ships that had engaged earlier. These were warships designed specifically to fight aliens, built with every advantage humanity could devise. Commander Dex watched the human fleet approach and felt fear for the first time in centuries. His sensors were going mad, detecting weapon signatures unlike anything in Imperial databases. Tactical analysis, he ordered. Unknown, sir, came the terrified reply. Their weapons don't match any known technology, energy signatures suggest. They're using some kind of exotic matter manipulation. The humans had indeed developed weapons the Thalarans couldn't understand, while the Empire had focused on brute force. Humanity had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had reverse engineered it, improved it, and combined it with human ingenuity to create something entirely new. The first human salvo struck the Thalaran flagship like the hammer of an angry god. The exotic matter warheads didn't just penetrate the alien shields, they turned the shield's own energy against the ship, creating feedback loops that tore through the hull like tissue paper.
Impossible. Dex screamed as his flagship shuddered around him. Our shields are impenetrable. Not anymore. Blake's voice came through the comm system. You wanted to see why the galaxy should fear humanity. This is just the beginning. The remaining Thalaran ships tried to retreat, but humanity had surrounded them completely. There was nowhere to run. Dex realized with growing horror that these primitives had been planning this moment for decades. Every human colony, every outpost, every settlement had been preparing for war. The Empire had awakened something terrible. Asterisk. The warning delivered. Commander Dex's flagship was dying around him. The bridge lights flickered as power systems failed. One by one, through the cracked viewports, he could see his once mighty fleet being systematically destroyed by the humans. Of his 12 dreadnoughts, only 3 remained functional. The rest were either destroyed or drifting hulks. His soldiers, the proud warriors of the Thalaran Empire, were being slaughtered by creatures they had dismissed as primitives just hours ago. Sir, his tactical officer gasped, blood running from a head wound. The humans are transmitting again. The main screen flickered to life one last time, showing Admiral Blake on the bridge of the Thunder. The human ship was damaged, but still fighting, still advancing. Behind Blake, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces hard with determination. Commander Dex, Blake said, his voice carrying across the void like a judge pronouncing sentence. You came here believing you were strong. You thought your empire's age gave you the right to threaten our children. Around the Thalaran flagship, human ships moved into perfect formation. Hundreds of weapons targeted the remaining alien vessels, but they held their fire. Waiting. You were wrong, Blake continued. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, wars that consumed continents. We faced extinction a dozen times and refused to die. We don't conquer for glory or empire. We fight for one reason, to protect what we love. Dex tried to speak, but his voice failed him. The human's eyes held something he had never seen before in an enemy. Not hatred, but pity. Your empire rules through fear, Blake said. You destroy civilizations to make others submit. But you've never faced a species that grows stronger when threatened. Every time you've conquered, you've made enemies who dreamed of revenge. Humanity remembers everything. On the tactical display, Dex could see human fleets moving throughout the galaxy. They weren't just defending. They were advancing on every Thalaran outpost, every Imperial base, every conquered world. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had mapped the entire Thalaran Empire. How? Dex whispered. Blake seemed to hear him across the void. We've been watching you for 50 years, Commander. Every species you conquered, we contacted in secret. Every world you destroyed, we remembered. Every slave you took, we promised. Freedom. The truth hit Dex like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been preparing for war, they had been building alliances. All those species the Empire had crushed, all those civilizations forced to submit, they had been waiting for someone strong enough to lead them. Your empire ends today, Blake said with quiet finality. Not because we're stronger than you, but because we fight for something you never understood. We fight for each other. The human fleet opened fire. But these weren't kill shots. The exotic matter weapons precisely targeted the Thalaran ship's engines and weapon systems, leaving life support intact. Within minutes, the remaining Imperial ships were completely helpless, drifting in space. This is your one warning, Blake announced on open channels, ensuring every Thalaran in the fleet could hear. Return to your empire. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity has awakened, and we are not alone. As if summoned by his words, new ships began appearing throughout the system. Ships of a dozen different designs, representing species the Empire had conquered over millennia. The humans had kept their promise. They had come to liberate the galaxy. Dex collapsed into his command throne, finally understanding the magnitude of his failure. The Thalaran Empire hadn't just attacked humanity, they had attacked the one species, capable of uniting their enemies against them. Admiral Blake, Dex transmitted, his voice broken. I understand now. Blake's image remained steady on the screen. Do you, Commander? Do you understand that every species you've enslaved is watching this moment? Do you understand that your empire's reign of terror is over? Dex nodded slowly, his forearms trembling. What ... what do you want? From us? Leave, Blake said simply. Return to your core worlds. Release every slave. Evacuate every occupied planet. The galaxy doesn't belong to you anymore. And if we refuse? Blake's smile was cold as the void between stars. Then you'll discover that this warning was the only mercy you'll ever receive from humanity. Next time, we won't be so gentle. The human fleet began to withdraw, their mission complete. Behind them, the liberation fleets moved toward Thalaran space, carrying hope to 1,000 enslaved worlds. Commander Dex sat in the wreckage of his flagship and realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The Thalaran Empire had ruled for 10,000 years through fear and brutality. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had given humanity a warning instead of just attacking. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when you threatened the children of Earth. The end.